When Miss Emily Grierson died, our whole town went to her funeral. The men through a sort of respectful affection for a fallen monument, the women mostly out of curiosities to see the inside of her house, which no one, save an old manservant, a combined gardener, and a cook, had seen in the last 10 years. Alive, Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty, and a care, and a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town, dating from the day in 1894 when Colonial Sartoris, the mayor, he who had fathered the edict that no Negro woman should appear in the streets without an apron, remitted her taxes. The dispensation dating from the death of her father and into perpetuity, when the next generation with its more modern ideas became mayors and aldermen, this arrangement created some little dissatisfaction.
Finally, it's that miscreant woman. Doesn't leave the house at all. Well, then I'll bring this issue to her.
Toby, open the door, please.
Good evening, sir. How are you today?
Quite well. Can you get Miss Emily for me?
Yes, sir. Right this way.
What can I do for you today, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you see, Miss Emily, it seems that you have not paid your taxes in some time. And we, that is the city council now, we're just concerned. But Miss Emily.
I have no taxes in Jefferson. Toby, show this gentleman out.
Emily,
So she vanquished them, horse and foot, just as she had vanquished their fathers 30 years before about the smell. That was about 2 years
I
after
don't know
her
what the
father's death.
population would have me do about the smell. Damn it, you can't just accuse
The
the
mayor
lady
snuck
to
over
her
to Miss
face of
Emily's
smelling
house
bad.
like a burglar, sniffing along the brickwork, and he broke open the cellar and outbuildings and sprinkled lime all around. And Miss Emily saw this and said not a word. When her father died, it got about that the house was all that was left to her, and in a way, people were glad. At last they could pity Miss Emily, being left alone and a pauper. She had become humanized.
Ministers this time, ma'am. They wish to speak to you.
Send them away, Toby. They have no business being here.
Doctors this time, ma'am. They say it's urgent.
Oh, gracious, fine. For the last time, my father is well.
She was crazy.
I don't know
then.
where someone
We
got
believed
this
that she had
nonsense
to do
idea that he wasn't.
We remembered all the
I
young
will
men
not
her father had
tolerate this
driven away.
harassment
We
any
knew that
longer.
with nothing
I think you have
left,
been
she would have to
dazed,
cling
sir.
on to that which had robbed her, as people will. When we saw her again, her hair was cut short, making her look like a girl, with a vague resemblance to those angels in colored church windows, sort of tragic and serene. The town had just let the contracts for the paving sidewalks, and in the summer after her father's death, they began the work. The construction company came with a foreman named Homer Barron. Pretty soon, he knew everybody in town.
What is a gorgeous lady?
Presently, we began to see Miss Emily with him on Sunday afternoons.
Of course, a Grierson would not think seriously of a northerner, a day laborer.
Poor Emily. Her kinsfolk should come to her.
Do you suppose it's really so? Of course it is. What else could?
Me as well, but I think I have something I need to tell you.
Me too, Homer. I've been building up the courage.
As have I.
And I feel like now is the time. But you first.
Well, Em, I'm gay. I don't just mean I'm very happy, although I really am. I mean, like, I like men.
Of course I support you. As long as you promise not to abandon me now that you've told me.
Oh, Em, I mean, I suppose I've thought about walking a couple of Sundays with Joe.
She carried her
the
head high,
handsome one we were talking
even when
about
we believed
yesterday.
that she was
A
fallen.
couple of Sundays now.
It was as if she demanded
that you know,
more
but
than ever the
I'd never
recognition of her
abandoned
dignity
So,
as the
what is it
last
that you wanted to
Grierson,
tell me, Em?
as if it had wanted the touch of
nothing
earthiness
at
to
all.
reaffirm her imperviousness. Like when she bought the rat poisoning.
Yes, Miss Emily.
The arsenic.
For rats and
That was
such?
over a
I'd
year
recommend-
after they had begun to save.
I want the best you have. I don't care what kind.
Well, ma'am, we have sartrazine, melamazine, thiazide. They kill anything up to an elephant. But what you want?
I want arsenic.
Why, of course, if that's what you want. But the law requires that you tell me what you're going to
Miss Emily just stared at him, her head tilted in order to look him eye for eye, until he looked away and went and got the arsenic and
Here's your
wrapped it
arsenic,
up.
ma'am.
So the next day we all said she will kill
Joe,
herself.
a couple
And we said it would be
Sundays
the
now.
best thing.
Why is it the men I
When
love
she
always
has
win?
first begun to be seen with Homer, we had said
Did you
she
hear
will
the
marry him.
tea?
No, what's the scoop?
I did. Scandalous. So, Miss Emily's lover, Homer, is actually a homosexual.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that. I cannot. How did you find out?
Well, when I was passing by the barber shop, I heard the young baseball players talking about the town queer.
Then some of the ladies began to say it was a
Why,
disgrace
all
to the
the-
town
it
and a
just
bad
isn't
example
ladylike
for the young
really
people.
hanging around him after what we've heard.
I say they either get married or something be done about it.
And so the minister's wife wrote to Miss Emily's relations in Alabama.
Can't tell
We
anybody
sat
this.
back to watch
I was
the
just in the
developments.
drawers, and I saw Miss Emily. She was buying toilet seats with HB on it. You know what that must mean, right?
Or guess what I just heard.
So we were not surprised when Homer Barron, the streets
Oh,
had
that's
been finished
nothing.
sometime
I just heard she
since
bought a
was gone.
whole men's outfit.
We were a little
including a
disappointed that
nightshirt.
there was not a
Probably
public
very
blowing
nice.
off, but we
Thank God.
believed that he had gone on to prepare for Miss Emily's coming. And sure enough, once they had left, Homer was back. A neighbor saw the Negro man admit him at the kitchen door at dusk one evening. That was the last time we saw of Homer Barron. For almost 6 months, Emily did not appear on the streets. When we next saw Miss Emily, she had grown fat and her hair was turning gray. Meanwhile, her taxes had been remitted. Daily, monthly, yearly, we watched the Negro grow grayer and more stooped, going in and out with the market basket. Each December, we sent a tax notice which would be returned by the post office a week later unclaimed. Now and then we would see her in one of her downstairs windows. She had evidently shut up the top floor of the house like the cavern torso of an idol in a niche, looking or not looking at us. We could never tell which. And so she died. We did not even know she was sick. We had long since given up trying to get any information from the Negro. He'd talked to no one, probably not even to her, for his voice had grown harsh and rusty. The two female cousins came at once. They held the funeral on the second day, with the town coming to look at Miss Emily beneath a mass of bought flowers. Already we knew that there was one room in that region above stairs which no one had seen in 40 years, and which would have to be forced open. They waited until Miss Emily was decently in the ground before they opened it. The violence of breaking down the door seemed to fill this room with a pervading dust. A thin, acrid pale, as if of a tomb, seemed to lie everywhere upon this room, decked and furnished as for a bridal. Upon the valance curtains of a faded rose color, upon the rose-shaded lights, upon the dressing table, upon the delicate array of crystal, and the man's toilet things backed with tarnished silver. Silver so tarnished that the monogram was obscured. Among them lay a collar and tie as if it had just been removed, which lifted upon the surface a pale crescent in the dust. Upon a chair hung the suit, carefully folded, beneath it the two mute shoes and the discarded socks. The man himself lay in the bed. For a long while we just stood there, looking down at the profound and fleshless grin. The body had apparently once lain in the attitude of an embrace, but now the long stonkers, even the grimace of love, had cuckolded him. What was left of him, rotted beneath what was left of the nightshirt, had become inextricable from the bed in which he lay, and upon him and upon the pillow beside him lay that even coating of the patient and bidding dust. Then we noticed that in the second pillow was the indention of a head. One of us lifted something from it, and leaning forward,
the faint and invisible dust dry and acrid in the nostrils. We saw a long strand of iron gray hair.